One of the most fun assignments I've ever had in the studio was doing the villainess in the 101 Dalmatians, Cruella de Vil. She was a funny villainess, and while what she was doing wasn't very nice, she herself was an entertaining character. You know, there were certain personality traits that she had. You never could get her to listen to anything. I know several such people. They do all the talking and never listen. And we all know people of that sort.
Now listen, you idiots. I'll be back first thing in the morning. And the job better be done or I'll call the police. Do you understand?
With the completion of Cruella de Vil, Marc was ready to tackle something new, and Walt Disney had just the thing, the 1964 New York World's Fair. Marc now found himself designing cavemen, a time-traveling family, the children of the world, and our 16th president, all in 3 dimensions.
This was limited in that, to the degree that you had characters with their feet nailed to the floor, practically. So you had to figure out something for them to do that was believable. Walt was a great admirer of Abraham Lincoln. This is, I believe I remember him saying that even as a youngster he had portrayed Abraham Lincoln in a school on a Lincoln birthday or something of the sort. So Walt asked me to give it some thought, and I did a number of things of how simple things work in anatomy, how perhaps a mechanical hand could work. This was rather naive in thinking, because really our problem was not to create a mechanical man, but was rather to create an illusion. Mr. Lincoln would have to rise from a seated position, move one leg forward, and then put himself up into a standing position. We had great technical difficulties in getting the character to move properly in New York, and God, it would be going great, and then all of a sudden he would do a great jerk or decide to sit down. So anyway, it was a very difficult period of time, and we were about 2 weeks late getting Mr. Lincoln to operate. Walt was very nervous. We all were very nervous.
The day finally came for Mr. Lincoln's first performance.
By golly, Mr. Lincoln went all the way through. Matter of fact, we were so successful with this in illusion that the reviewer, I think for the New York Times, saw it and explained how Mr. Lincoln stood up and walked forward on the stage and gave his address. So the illusion was pretty good.
What constitutes the bulwark of our liberty and independence? It is not our frowning battlements, our bristling sea coasts. These are not our reliance against tyranny.
After the World's Fair, the 4 Disney attractions made the move to Disneyland, and Marc went with them.
When I started working down there, there was nothing that was funny in any of the attractions that I can recollect. And this was the thing all the way through, that I have tried to do, is to bring in humor. I did the redo of the Jungle River ride, and I added the elephant pool and the trap safari and that sort of thing to that. And I think that trap safari was probably the first laugh that Disneyland had an attraction.
Each new Disneyland attraction opened another dimension to Marc's art and earned him some good advice from Walt Disney.
Walt said he wanted to do a pirate ride. We did a model of the attraction, and Walt saw all of that, and then we started building figures. But Walt was afraid, well, we're going to see this pretty close. Well, when you're moving, like in a boat, you don't see things that way. You're moving along, you see something here, you see something there, you're always looking forward. So the highly developed auctioneer figure that we put in there really was quite unnecessary. And I said this to him. He said, "Hey, look, Mark," he said, "that's great." He said, "You know," he said, "we get so much repeat business here." He said, "That means each time we come down, we'll see something that we didn't see before."
Strike your colors, you bloomin' cockroaches! Rise thunder! We'll see you to Davy Jones!
Walt never got to see the Pirates of the Caribbean completed.
About 2 weeks before Walt died, he came into my office and sat down. He just wanted to talk. Matter of fact, in that chair in there, as a matter of fact. And he saw these drawings on the wall, and he laughed like hell. He looked very bad. Anyway, we went out and had a meeting on a little thing that we were doing, came back in, and then he walked down the hall and said goodbye. And I never saw him after that. He never said goodbye to anybody in his life. He said, "Well, I'll see you next week," or something. But anyway, probably the last laugh he had was these bear drawings.
By the mid-60s, Marc was one of the mainstays at WED, where Disneyland attractions are created. His designs are the foundation of the Country Bear Jamboree, the Haunted Mansion, and for the last job before his retirement, America Sings. And although these projects were completed without Walt Disney, Marc always remembered the best piece of advice his boss ever gave him.
I remember one time I had a talk with Walt, and this was up in his office, and I said, "You know, there's two ways you could do this, an expensive way and an inexpensive way." And he says, "No." He said, "Mark, I don't agree with that." He says, "I think when you do something and you do it well enough, the public's going to pay you back for it. And I think when other people understand that, I think you can do anything."
As an artist, Marc Davis could do anything. Story sketches, animation, Disneyland designs. He was an artist's artist, whose talent was a cornerstone of Disney's world. It was his fellow artists at Disney who presented him with the most cherished memento of his career. It sits in his home, situated honorably between priceless pieces of New Guinea art.
A marvelous gift by not the company, not executives, but by the people that did things with me. And I think that's the highest compliment you could ever have.